You're listening to Skeptoid. I'm Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com. The Legend of the Dover Demon. Welcome to the show that separates fact from fiction, science from pseudoscience, real history from fake history, and helps us all make better life decisions by knowing what's real and what's not. Come back with us now to 1977, when everything was just a little bit more awesome. The clothes, the dancing, and of course, the cryptids. Nowhere were the groovy cryptids better exemplified than in Dover, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston. In 3 separate incidents, all late at night and spanning only 24 hours, 4 teenagers all reported seeing the same bizarre unknown creature while they were either walking or driving in the rural community. It was like some kind of alien monster, small but with a giant head and tiny thin body. In each case, it vanished and was never seen again, except in the memories of the teens and in the annals of urban legendary. What could it have been? We are here today to do our best to answer that question. We have no physical evidence that anything happened at all, just the testimony of these 4 young people. So let's take a closer look at what they said happened. Dover is about a half-hour commute from Boston and is populated mainly by Massachusetts' most wealthy. It is, in fact, Massachusetts' wealthiest town, with a tiny population of only 5,000 back in 1977 and hardly any larger today. The estates and the homes are both, by and large, large. It is beautiful and green and rural. But for high school students, it was not a place of dazzling social opportunities. The students would have had to find their own amusements. Late on the nights of April 21st and 22nd, 1977, 4 students from Dover Sherborne High School, total enrollment just under 500, all shared an incredible experience, but in 3 apparently unconnected incidents. Their ages ranged from 15 to 18. The first came when Bill Bartlett, 17, was rolling in his sweet Volkswagen with some friends. Suddenly he saw, though nobody else in the car did, a bizarre creature on the side of the road, short but with a huge head, white or peach in color, big eyes, no other facial features, and a very thin neck and limbs. 2 hours later, John Baxter, 15, was walking home when he encountered a silhouette walking toward him. He called out, and the creature ran away across a ditch, and John then caught his first good look at it. It had a huge double-lobed head, like a peanut, and skinny arms and legs with long fingers that seemed to wrap around and mold to the tree it held and to the rocks it stood upon. The next night, also late, 18-year-old Will Tainter was driving his girlfriend Abby Brabham, 15, home. She spotted a creature in the road, monkey-like, but with a huge oblong head. The smooth-skinned creature, tan in color, its eyes shining back brightly in the headlights. Will caught only a passing glance as they drove. The entire sighting lasted only a few seconds. Bartlett, today a professional artist, and Baxter both drew sketches of what they saw, and they were strikingly similar. A small, thin creature with a huge double-lobed head, tiny body, and shockingly skinny neck and limbs, and no features on its face except glowing eyes, reflecting the headlights. The Dover Demon is one of those cases that's really hard to solve to anyone actually trying to solve it. The alleged creature made only one appearance in history, to only a few people in just that one 24-hour span. Nobody ever reported anything like it before or since. It only appeared to 4 teenagers, all of whom knew each other and attended the same very small high school. It didn't appear to any adults or to anyone else on those streets at the same time, despite 3 alleged appearances at 3 different locations. There simply wasn't any data, except for 4 verbal, unevidenced accounts. Normally, I would simply ignore a story like this on the principle of Hitchens' razor. What can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. But this is Skeptoid, and since the urban legend exists, we know there are lessons to be learned in how to skeptically approach the claims, and in understanding how and why the urban legend exists. Let's look at the possibilities. If there was a strange creature, there are 2 possibilities. Number 1, a small population, perhaps just one, of this undiscovered creature, roughly as described, is or was real, and actually did make the appearances to the teens. Or, number 2, someone hoaxed the teens with some kind of costume or puppet, perhaps even one of the 4 of them. If there was no strange creature, there are also 2 possibilities. Number 1, the teens all misidentified a normal animal or person. As we know, this is by far the most common explanation for mysterious sightings of all kinds. Or, number 2, the teens made it up and lied about it. So, now, let's do our thing and go through each of these 4 possibilities to see where each is strong and where it's weak. Number 1, the creature was genuinely a strange, unknown entity. This should be the last possibility to be considered. It's where Occam's razor comes in. The explanation requiring the fewest new assumptions should be preferred. None of the other 3 explanations require any new assumptions at all. Hoaxes happen every day. People misidentify things every day. People lie about stuff every day. But an unknown strange entity is a gigantic new assumption about the world. To see just how gigantic it would be, we can consider the creature's anatomically implausible nature. This explanation would be correct only if the teen's description of it was infallible and faultless. So we're talking about a creature with an enormous head which would be quite heavy, supported by a neck and limbs that would be, according to the drawings, totally inadequate to support its weight. It had no evident nose, mouth, or ears, thus no way to breathe. It was naked at night, when the average temperature there on that date hovers just above freezing, 3 degrees Celsius or 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Its other distinctive features are also unknown among full-time bipeds. There's nothing like it in the whole taxonomic catalog. There's also the matter that it was only seen during this one 24-hour period. If it lived in the vicinity, it would have been spotted many other times as well. There simply aren't any examples of actual creatures living among humans that have only ever been seen once, and it's just not plausible. So in just about every way, this is not an acceptable explanation. Number 2, someone hoaxed the teens. Of course this happens. It could have been anyone, or it could have been one of the 4 making up their own experience and then trying to scare their friends with some kind of costume or puppet. Well, it couldn't have been a costume, because its small size and twig-like limbs were well outside the range of what any human could have fit into. Could it have been some kind of puppet, marionette, or radio-controlled audio animatronic? Well, sure, it could have. But if so, it was pretty elaborate and effective. Wouldn't a hoaxer who made something so elaborate want to use it more than just on these few kids just this one time? In a 2023 article for Skeptical Inquirer magazine, author Ben Radford, who popped a tire on one of our vans on the Skeptoid Death Valley adventure, noted that the police concluded the whole episode was, quote, nothing more than a school vacation hoax, and that, quote, though many locals vouched for the teens' credibility, several pointedly did not. I agree that a hoax is a possibility. I just don't think it's a very likely one, unless all 4 were in on the hoax and there was never any elaborate puppet creature. Number 3, the teens misidentified a normal animal or person. It's possible for one person to see an everyday animal or person from pretty close up and misidentify it so radically as a large-headed alien-like creature with very thin limbs. But it's much less likely for 4 people to all do so. So while it's true that honest misidentification accounts for many reports of strange sightings, I think it's pretty unlikely in this case. Yet, misidentification of an ordinary animal is what investigator and author Joe Nickell went with, also writing in Skeptical Inquirer and also in 2023. He was satisfied that the Dover demon was simply a male snowy owl. The color and shape of the whole owl are generally a good match for the reported double-lobed head lacking any nose or mouth. The eye shine would be compatible with the reports, And if its wings were extended a bit, they could be mistaken for long, spindly arms with long fingers at the end. The owl identification is a bit troublesome for me. Not only because Joe's a respected friend of mine, and because just 2 episodes I also disagreed with his identification for the Gloucester sea serpent, but mainly because it's not logical. Yes, granted, a person might look at a snowy owl in the right conditions and they could think they're seeing something that looks like what these teens drew. But if it happened to 4 people in town in just 24 hours, it must be a very compelling illusion. Yet the illusion never fooled anyone, ever, before or since. For this reason, I don't find the misidentification explanation to be a good fit for this case, which is unusual because it's often a perfect fit for many cases of strange sightings. And this brings us to number 4, the teens lied about it. This is the only one of the possible explanations that has no weaknesses. There's no evidence that anything happened at all. Again, quoting Radford,
despite police searches and the participation of 4 researchers from 5 different UFO and Fortean organizations, including cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman, no evidence was ever found. Eyewitnesses were interviewed, measurements were taken, and reenactments were done. The fact that the Dover Demon was a one-off sighting, reported by 3 teen friends in just over 1 day, hurts its credibility as well. No one else in the town reported seeing anything strange, and nearby animals were reported to be acting normally.
Some authors have noted that the year of the event, 1977, was the same year that Close Encounters of the Third Kind was released, and that the creature drawn and described by the teens was a suspiciously close match for the alien creatures in that film. The teens could have been inspired by it and cooked up a little scheme to pretend to have seen one. I discount this, as the movie was released a full 8 months after the Dover Demon sightings. Just to be clear, I'm not calling the kids liars. Nothing unusual having happened is simply our null hypothesis, our default assumption, in the lack of any compelling evidence to the contrary. The alternatives all range from illogical to completely implausible. So, unless the Dover Demon makes a reappearance and leaves us some empirical evidence of his existence, this one remains an uninteresting and almost certainly false campfire story. We continue with more on my disagreement with other skeptical researchers in the ad-free and extended premium feed. To access it, become a supporter at skeptoid.com/go-premium. A great big Skeptoid shout-out to our premium supporters, including Gail Pepin, the Evil Princess, Dan from Arizona, The Real Dr. House, and Sean Callow. Upcoming events at which I'll be speaking include a number of our own events, like our monthly Nerd Night here in Central Oregon, in which I personally write all the super science trivia questions, and of course, our very next Skeptoid Adventures trip, Braving the Bermuda Triangle. Are you willing to brave it? Come to skeptoid.com/speaking to book your very own Skeptoid engagement with me, Brian Dunning. And watch our feature documentary film, Science Friction, a shocking look at how TV networks will edit scientists out of context and misrepresent them. Science Friction available on streaming services. Free accompanying educational materials for teachers are provided on the movie's website at sciencefriction.tv. Skeptoid is a production of Skeptoid Media. Director of Operations and Tinfoil Hat Counter is Kathy Reitmeyer. Marketing guru and Illuminati liaison is Jake Young. Production management and all things audio by Will McCandless. Music is by Lee Sanders. Researched and written by me, Brian Dunning. You're listening to Skeptoid, a listener-supported program. I'm Brian Dunning from Skeptoid.com.